I'm Phil Cramer. I'm the VFX supervisor from Digital Domain on Fantastic Four First Steps.
I am Alison Luong. I'm the digital producer at Digital Domain on Fantastic Four First Steps.
The baby Franklin for us was something pretty special to work on, and even though it's a kind of a character you don't, uh, it's sort of invisible effect. That's the goal, right? Like we don't want to sort of really show that there was a baby that's also CG at times, throughout the show. But I think you just showed there the clip of the X-ray sequence where we kind of look inside of Sue's belly, which is something never seen before, I think, and it's very, very fascinating. And for us, that was a fun journey because, again, we were very early on the show because of Franklin, because that was sort of our initial scope we looked into to understand how do we do a baby, and one of the tests we did with a stunt woman sitting in a chair and holding her pregnant belly, and the idea was like, how can you look into this and come up with ideas for that. And so for us, it was critical to find a way that it does look very aesthetically pleasing and not medically too accurate and off-putting in turn, like that it doesn't become too bloody and medical. So we wanted to have this ethereal looking baby inside of the belly with beautiful refractions and colors around it. You might wonder, why do we do the babies? Like, what is this about? Why would you want to do a baby like that? Why not just use a baby? It's probably a good question. But the reason is, like, the baby was so young that we wanted, or that Matt, the director, wanted to use for Franklin's age, that we knew that it's a noticeable change in age very quickly, because like when you get a 4 months old baby like that and you shoot for 6 months, the baby almost doubles in size and looks completely different at the end. And the movie timeline was much shorter. So that provided the core issue why we were looking into the baby. Then on top of it, it's not legal for a baby to work an 8-hour day, yeah, especially that young. So they, I think, just have a few half an hour or something, or an hour, that they're allowed to actually act throughout the day in a very limited time window. And so due to that, there were a ton of stand-in babies. They ended up ending over 30 stand-in babies that would constantly be held by the mom, like just a random baby. So when you watch a raw cut, you see 30 babies constantly. Bop, 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 bop. Every shot has a different baby, and that's very distracting. And so that's where we came in. It's like, make it one baby that nobody noticed that all this was going on. And this is kind of the core reason behind all that, why we went through the trouble to make a CG baby like that.
Yeah, all the different stand-in babies. I think there were 30 of them, presented an interesting challenge to our team because babies already have different proportions than adult humans, but each baby also, they just varied so much in size and where they were as far as development. In order to track all these babies, our team had to develop a rig that was able to accommodate the different baby scales and proportions, because, as you can imagine, them being of different sizes would present a new challenge for us to make sure the final baby, the one that resembles the principal actress, fit properly into Sue's arms. As Phil said, Franklin's primarily being carried through this movie.
I think, like, even if you would have just 4 months-old babies, all of them, they would all look different and have different sizes on top of it, And I think what Alison is also hitting there at is like that there wasn't a common solution to solve the baby shots. Like we would get, like, I think, yeah, we see in the clip you showed, like, some she's walking out with the baby out of after they come back to Earth out of the rocket, and that sequence, the baby was wrapped in a blanket, and it was a bunch of different babies that in the sequence, and they were all sorts of sizes, and we knew it needed to be very small. And so kind of every shot becomes its own unique puzzle piece of, like, how do you achieve that now is a consistent looking baby at the same size. And to us, that was a very fun I think visual effects challenge, because normally you approach like, you try to standardize the approach, but here that wasn't really possible. So we need to make sure we have like a really good baby asset that we can put in all sorts of scenarios. And like as an example, either we use a head projection, put it in there, or it's a full CG baby, or we remove the limbs and the arms from the plate baby and just replace the hair. All sorts of options were used. And I think that became really critical also to the success of Franklin, because nobody could really tell what the pattern, what we're doing is, it was always something new.
Yeah, those are some of my favorite meetings early on in the show when Phil and I would spend hours going through every reel and cataloging each baby, identifying them, and then figuring out how we were going to try to tackle each shot as its own unique challenge.
Yeah, I think we have seen enough of babies for a lifetime. But it was worth the effort, because I think it's something very unique to make like a baby like that. And with that, again, like to talk like when we went out to England, so I got tasked by Marvel to help identify this baby in the first place, and that was a very odd experience, because we went out to London and right away I would meet just moms and babies, and lots of them, and help with the casting process to sort of whittle down out of 14 baby to identify two babies. These two babies, then we scanned them and filmed them and all sorts of different techniques for 2 weeks, and we partnered there together with Clear Anger, and they built to our spec a rig where a baby could be in from hours at a time. And because these babies were so young that we knew like we had to be very careful that we don't damage the baby in any way with bright light or whatnot. And so we designed this special rig that operated at lower lighting condition than normal and would allow a baby in a comfortable state. And it's again, normally the reason for that is like we tell an actor, do this, like smile, and they smile and we capture. Tell that a baby that just does nothing. So we had to wait for circumstantial acting, we called it. That something happens that look good, and then we would capture them.
Yeah, no one made the babies cry.
But that was a core goal, to get them to cry. So whenever the baby would naturally start crying, I would be like, everybody, action. And then we would wait, and everybody was looking at me like, when can we make it stop? And I would always allow for like 20 to 30 seconds of crying baby before we cut. But this was discussed with the parents prior.
An interesting time in your life to spend days cataloging baby footage.
Yes, that was
Friends.
something. And then one other thing regarding the baby, I just want to add, like early on, like this was over a year and a half before the shoot, Marvel came to DD and sort of started inquiring about how can we make a baby, like how can we deal with this problem? Because they recognize this will be probably the largest technical hurdle in the film to sort of get through all the visual effects. And so early on, my baby, I had my son Cosmo happened to be at the target age that they were having, and so I mentioned to them I have a baby just in the age that you need, and so we ended up doing this little shoot with Matt Shackman and Marvel all there, and Cosmo, my son was there, and we ended up scanning him with ICT and basically recreating 3 shots of the film, like different scenarios of what we wanted to achieve. And anyway, so it was a unique experience early on, and a very personal experience too, to sort of test all that. And then that's exactly how we later attacked all the shots, with that knowledge of like how to make a baby like that.